What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a Sunday edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Batters Rugby Clinic, Hoodco Roofing, hoodcoroofing.com, Restored Motion, restoredmotions.com, and ProCharge EV, ProChargeEV.com. All right, y'all. Tigers win. LSU 42-30 over Texas A&M by the hardest. Obviously, Tigers got down and trailed actually in the fourth quarter of this game, but boy, did that offense get churning late. And of course, you basically you got Texas A&M off of their game. I thought A&M was their game plan was exactly right, and they executed it almost to perfection for the bulk of that game, which was possess the ball, slow it down, keep LSU's offense on the sideline, uh, and prevent the LSU defense from getting stops, which LSU struggled with that all year. But obviously, the missed field goal in the third quarter that would have made it 7, and then the game really turned when LSU flipped the possession on Greg Penn's interception, and Tigers got a score. I'm trying to do it from memory. Let me just get my notes. When Greg Penn they missed the field goal, but you go 3 and out. You get the Greg Penn interception, short field, 3 plays later, touchdown. Brian Thomas for 13 yards, Chris Hilton for 25 yards, and the Brian Thomas touchdown, which was, God, what a catch that was. Just lost that kid in the back of the end zone. So then you take your first lead, 27-24. Well, actually, no, you led 7-0, excuse me. But then you take a lead 27-24 in the fourth quarter. You hold them to a 3 and out. This is where Harold Perkins got the sack on third down. I thought Perkins played great yesterday. God, he was good yesterday. Then Neighbors gets the touchdown, so you're up 11, 35-24. And then you allow a 3-play touchdown to that offense. The 51-yard rumble by the fullback, tight end, H-back, whatever they call him. And then you went down and scored again. So you were able to really jam with a 21-point fourth quarter when you needed it the most, and that allowed Jaden to stat compile and allowed you to pull away, and you had to have it. You got it. So Tigers win. They go 9-3. We can talk about the game itself. You're probably waking up today and seeing a lot of the coaching news report out there that Jeff Lebby is going to be the Mississippi State head coach. Tom Allen has been fired at Indiana. There were reports about Mark Stoops to Texas A&M. Y'all, I got some thoughts on that. It's just Jimmy Sexton is amazing at his job. I don't know how anyone in the world would actually believe that Texas A&M would hire the Kentucky coach. Look, they did the same thing. Sexton did the same thing with Stoops a couple of years ago with LSU, and had people actually believing that Mark Stoops was going to be the LSU coach. Intellectually, the coach at Kentucky coming off a 7-5 season, whatever they were this year, he doesn't get the opportunity to say no to LSU and Texas A&M to stay at Kentucky. Like, intellectually, you know that. That's just agents doing great work. So we're going to find out, I would imagine, a lot more today. Coaching decisions, coaches that are staying, coaches that are going to be fired, assistant coaches, all that sort of stuff. And there's no doubt that LSU is going to have to make a call defensively. And that's not a great, the game yesterday ain't a great way to go out if you're Matt House as the final, punctuation piece on your resume. So anyway, all right, let's say some good mornings. Of course, Jaden, I know a lot of people are curious about Jaden's Heisman odds. And unfortunately, Bo Nix after Friday night overtook Jaden on, I think, on about 3 of the 6, about half of the mobile sites, and it looks like it's pretty much consensus. There's one, it might have been FanDuel or BetMGM, that has them as a push, but right now Bo Nix leads at -120. Jaden is +105. For those that don't understand betting odds, essentially the minus odds means you'd have to bet $120 to win 100. Jaden +105 means if you bet 100, you win 105. So Bo Nix is the betting favorite to win it. And I do put a lot of stock in that because the odds makers talk to Heisman voters and have a good sense of how that's going to go. And obviously they're not in the business of losing money. So I do think that matters. We all need to become really, really big Washington Husky fans this weekend because you'd love for Washington. And by the way, Washington's defense is atrocious. So that's a real concern going against Oregon down in Vegas in the Pac-12 championship, because if Bo Nix goes down there and puts on a show, he's probably going to win it. I hate to say it, but I don't think he deserves it. I think Jaden is very clearly the best player in college football this year. I believe that's very clear. But Bo Nix is a really good player on a team having a great season. And sometimes that's how people vote. And I hate it, but that's the truth. You know the drill. If you're there on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Facebook, please like the Matt Scone page, share the post. Trump's tweeter, good morning. Jason Walker, Pat Huseman, appreciate y'all. Bailey C. Milrow really said, give me the Heisman last night. He did say after the game he let his emotions get the best of him, but come on, bro. What are we doing, Jalen Milrow? Jimmy James, this house is not a home. Mac 34, crazy end of the regular season. Generally goes that way, man. Christian, what's going on? Jaleel Dean, No Sweat Sports. Shane O'Mac, good morning, y'all. Brian Penton, good morning from Vidor, Texas. Larry Garner, Brad David, was Mark Stoops really offered the A&M job? I just don't believe that. Intellectually, I'll say this again, intellectually, you know that if the head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats, coming off they beat Louisville yesterday, nice win by Kentucky to go on the road and beat Louisville, where Louisville's been really good at home this year. But if the head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats, after a 7-5 season where they were 3-5 in the SEC, had the opportunity to take the Texas A&M job, and you mean to tell me he turned it down to stay in Lexington? No, I think Jimmy Sexton is brilliant at what he does. Dalton Pichon, please tell me you have insider information that Matt House has already left the state. I do not, unfortunately. Trivia Carter, good morning. Gregory Gordy, great game, great season. Thank you, 5. Yeah, Christian said LSU purchased billboards in multiple cities to campaign for Jaden for Heisman. I saw that, and honestly, I think yes, you should absolutely stump as much as you can, promote all that stuff. I don't know that it actually will work or matter. I don't know that like a Heisman voter is going to be moved because there's a billboard in Seattle. And they also have a couple in Michigan, which is odd. I don't know why they put billboards in Michigan, but Seattle makes sense. It's Pac-12, and Penix is up there, but whatever. I don't know why they picked the ones in Michigan. That's weird. Did they find out why Kyron Lacey was crying? Yeah, so his holding penalty negated the long Malik Neighbors catch and run, and that would have given Malik Neighbors the all-time LSU receiving record had that play stood. So as it is, I think Malik is something like 23 yards short of the record. He did break Wendell Davis's career receptions record, but Michigan, Bryce Underwood, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Kyron Lacey. Yeah, so that's why. So Kyron Lacey was upset because his holding penalty, which was a bogus holding penalty, by the way, but the holding penalty is that Malik would have had the LSU, he would have broken Josh Reed's career receiving yards mark on that play. So now, if Malik's going to break it, he'll have to play in the bowl game. And I know he said yesterday after the game that he plans to play in the bowl game, but we'll see if that stands. I hope so. I think it'd be awesome if he does. But again, I'll never fault anybody who chooses not to play in a bowl game. Brian Amanda Guidry, Vernell Thomas, good morning. Brant Roban, morning Scone. How does Alabama always do it? 4th and goal. Well, it was from the 31, but yeah. Not only that, but Auburn gave it to him, man. Auburn muffed the punt. Coy Moore muffed the punt, which gave him the ball. Otherwise, they would have bled the timeouts basically into the game. So you have to leave the door open. And good teams believe they're going to win. And bad teams find a way to lose. Tim Edwards gave ball to Slade Roy. Taught our defense how to tackle. So Slade Roy did have a really big tackle in the game. And it came, so after they missed the field goal, LSU went 3 and out and punted. And boy, if Slade Roy didn't make that tackle, the returner had a lot, Anaya Smith had a lot of room to run. But Slade Roy came up with a great tackle. LSU forced a 3 and out. I'm sorry, LSU got the Greg Penn interception right after that tackle. So yes. Eric Hart, good morning. Bears win, Tigers win, Saints. I hope so, man. Would love for the Saints to polish off this weekend. That'd be awesome. TK Brown, Bubba Smith, Ryan Dixon. Is Bjork related to Oliva? I don't think so. Chris Keller, are we still looking like Tampa for bowl game? Yeah, Chris, we'll see after next week, but what plays out with the New Year's Six. I mean, I could sort of eyeball it right now and kind of give you a best guess. So if Ohio State won't go to the playoff, they'll go to the Rose Bowl. Washington or Oregon likely will be in. Michigan, assuming they beat Purdue, would be in. Georgia or Alabama. The tricky thing would be if Alabama beats Georgia, what do you do? That's where you really end up with a chaos scenario. But you have 5 11-0 teams right now. So, no, I'm sorry, 4, because Ohio State lost, of course. So Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State are your 11-0 teams. Or 12-0, sorry. Hold on. Need my caffeine. Texas, if they win the Big 12 would have a compelling case of 1 loss. The thing that I think is really hard for Bama is Texas and Bama would each have 1 loss if Bama beats Georgia, 1 loss to conference champion, and Texas has a head-to-head. Texas has got to go in over Bama. So it would be great if we could solve all this if we had a real expanded playoff. So next year it's going to be wonderful to not have to have this conversation. I saw people debating, does Florida State, after a close win over Florida, is Florida State really one of the 4 best teams in the country? Without Jordan Travis. I don't know, but a great way to solve it? Let's play games on the field. What a crazy idea, right? Let's actually play football games to determine if they are, instead of just trying to decide it with a debate in a hotel ballroom in suburban Dallas with a bunch of self-important dopes. Huh? Crazy. Anyway, so Louisville lost. That helps LSU. They fall to 2-loss team. Oklahoma won. Yeah, it's hard to imagine, man, in Missouri winning. ReliaQuest is probably LSU's donation or destination of the bowl game. Jesse Brown, morning, Matt. Color rush jerseys for the Saints. Did Jane do enough to keep his Heisman lead? So, no, he did not do enough to keep his Heisman lead. Bo Nix had overtaken him Friday, and then Jaden didn't reclaim the lead yesterday. We'll see if maybe throughout the day today that continues to build, but like it did last week, with a lot of talking heads, but we'll see. Patrick McKenzie, morning, Matt. Do you think today is Matt House's last day? I don't know. I do know that generally, whenever you're going to make a move, you're going to make it quickly. And then also keep in mind, the transfer portal window opens December the 4th. So you don't have a lot of time, right? If you're going to make a move, you want to make that move and make it quickly. So not only for your program, but for the other coach to be able to find a job or whatever the case may be. So Brandon Tilley, Brett DeGrow. Looks like the inmates are running the prison at A&M. What a joke place is. Cortland Jacobs, as bad as LSU's defense was. See, wait, real quick though, Brett. Like, I just don't believe that the whole. I know what people are saying. Like, Ross Bjork was going to offer Mark Stoops the job, and then the boosters got all mad and they pulled the offer. Like, I just don't believe that. You don't. That's not where A&M was going, and maybe I'm also just more influenced by it because we saw the same thing with Mark Stoops 2 years ago at LSU. That is Jimmy Sexton doing an amazing job. And generally, if you're a good athletic director who's worth your salt, you have a lot of red herrings. You have a lot of candidates out there that are getting all the conversation, and you probably interviewed. You talked to some of these people, but a lot of times that might be a courtesy, it might be due diligence, but like nobody really was talking about Brian Kelly 2 years ago. We were talking about Mark Stoops and Lincoln Riley and you guys like that. And then at the nth hour, here comes Brian Kelly taking the job, right? My guess is it's something similar at A&M. Make defense great again. Coy Moore. Coy with a K, by the way. Brandon Kelly, the Matt House should not have made it to the locker room after the game. Yeah. It was brutal. I mean, especially watching the consistent inability to get off the field on third down. A&M, I mean, the only time you got off the field in the first half was when they dropped the 4th and 2. And the guy was wide open. 3rd and 3, 6-yard run. 3rd and 4, they had a 3-yard reception. They went for it on 4th down, got it. 3rd and 12, 13-yard reception. That was after a sack. 3rd and 11, 16-yard reception. 3rd and 3, 10-yard reception. 3rd and 5, 1-yard run. They kicked the field goal. I was surprised they ran it there. Well, I figured what they were doing was on 3rd and 5, they knew they were going to go for it on 4th down if they got a chunk of the yardage, but they only got a yard. 3rd and 9, 10-yard reception. 3rd and 7, 32-yard reception. 3rd and 8, 7-yard reception. Ran it for 2 yards on 4th and 1, so they convert. 3rd and 3, touchdown to Jake Johnson. I mean, that was just absolutely maddening. Lars Corville, does Jaden Cry promote his local food bank and his Heisman acceptance speech? Got to win it first, Bubba. Bubba Tatum, morning Sconers. The hook cost me $1,000 yesterday on the Tiger game. Kneeling on the ball instead of scoring was a lesson to me about why not to bet LSU. Sorry, everyone, my fault. No, not your fault at all. I mean, no one else is affected by you losing $1,000. LSU won, and that was great. So, what did you bet? The game total or the team total? I don't know what LSU's team total was. And I don't remember what the game total was. 67, was that right? What did it end? 30, 42, 30? The total went over. 42 to 30? Yeah, the total was like 67, 172. The game total went over. Unless you're talking about LSU's team total. Bama's going to beat Georgia. I hate it here. I don't know, Brambo. I think Georgia is playing the best they've played all year, and I think their defense is fast and athletic enough to stop Jalen Milroe from running all over him. And I also think they have a good enough secondary to not let him just crush them with a deep ball. My real question is, will Georgia's offense be able to get going against Bama? But I like Georgia in that game. Cliff Nelson, good morning. Man, what a game by Greg Penn. And what was the historically bad defense in LSU history? Greg Penn was easily the most outstanding player all year. Is there any chance he can come back? Of course. So Cliff all year has been yelling that he doesn't understand why Greg Penn is on the field on 3rd down. I mean, it has been a consistent marble or rock in Cliff's shoe has been Greg Penn on the field on 3rd down. And then the biggest play of the game was Greg Penn getting an interception on 3rd down. But yes, Cliff, Greg Penn is a junior. He can come back. He can come back this year. Next year, I should say. And by the way, I think Greg Penn leads LSU in tackles. I hope he does come back. I think he's a really good. He is LSU's leading tackler. 75. Major Burns is 73. So yes, I hope LSU's leading tackler does return. I think that would be great. Boy, Lord knows they need help everywhere they can get it. Mac 34, Ryan Slayton, who dat, win that, let's go. Noah June, thought we were done for at 24-14. You predicted 41-31, pretty close. Yeah, I did. That was my score, was 41-31. It ended up 40-32. And by the way, remember A&M went for 2. If they just kicked a PAT, I would have nailed their point total exactly at 41. But anyway, or 31, sorry. Yeah, it was close. It was close. Brian Wynn, good morning. Lars Corville, does both Alabama and Georgia make the playoff? Yeah, I don't think so, Lars. I don't see a path. I don't see a path for Alabama to make it unless if you have some pretty significant upsets, like if Michigan loses to Iowa, if Florida State loses to Louisville, if Texas, who beat Alabama, loses in the conference championship game, they're playing Okie State. All those teams have to lose, because I don't think Bama, as a one-loss team who lost a head-to-head to Texas, would leapfrog all those teams. So they would need the path to clear for them with a lot of upsets. But I also just think Georgia's going to win that game. But we'll see. Jacob Thompson, good meeting you yesterday. Good morning, Matt. On my way back to Virginia. Yep, great meeting you, man. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it, dude. Safe travels. Tim Gotro. Brambo, too early expectations for LSU 2024. Here's the thing, Brambo. That's, I think, getting harder and harder to predict because of the transfer portal, number one. Number two, remember this also. Remember LSU's schedule next year. You play USC in the opener in Vegas. You have UCLA at home in the non-conference. You have Oklahoma coming to Baton Rouge next year. You have Alabama coming to Baton Rouge next year. You have Ole Miss coming to Baton Rouge next year, which is fresh off a 10-2 season, and Jackson Dart could return. And then you have Mississippi State as well coming to Baton Rouge. You're going to Florida. Auburn's not on the schedule. Who am I leaving off? Oh. You get Vanderbilt and Baton Rouge, thank God. At South Carolina is the other one. And then, of course, A&M and Arkansas. So your conference games are Ole Miss at home, Vandy at home, thank God. Oklahoma and Bama at home. Your road conference games are South Carolina, Texas A&M, Florida, Arkansas. And then your non-conference games are USC neutral, UCLA at home, Nicholls and South Alabama. LSU may have the toughest schedule in college football this year. All right, let's see. Please smash that like button. 366 watching live. Appreciate y'all for being there. If you're new, please subscribe up to the channel. Facebook, please like the Matt Scone page, share the post. Appreciate y'all very, very much. As always, brought to you by Brock and HUDCO. You need a roof, call HUDCO. You need an orthopedist, call Brock. HUDCO is pinned in the chat, so just click that link, and love to help you out with a free, no obligation roofing inspection. Jesse Post, morning, Matt. So glad Jaden took it over, especially in the fourth. T-Bob was killing me on Whiskey and Wine with the adult film star references. Yes, if you have, that was weird even for him. If you have any desire or tolerance, go watch the first 10 minutes or so of Whiskey and Wine and you'll understand. Scroll past the audio issues in the first few minutes. Spectrum WellCare, I predicted 10-2 with losses to Ole Miss, Bama. Not a bad year for BK. Let's see. Brett DeGroff, Aranda is fired, needs to be the first call. Yeah, really bad year for Baylor. We've had a lot of talks about Aranda. Obviously, a lot of people have been bringing him up. My sense is two things. Number one, I think Dave Aranda still wants to be head coach. Number two, there's some scuttle in coaching circles that if Aranda is fired, that he would go to USC as Lincoln Riley's defensive coordinator. He's from California, would get him close to home. The thing that LSU would have going for it is Aranda and his family loved Baton Rouge. Loved Baton Rouge. And it would not be hard to convince them to come back here. But the pull of going closer to home or the lure of being a head coach somewhere may be the thing. If he gets fired, which I don't know that he is. Stephen Fry, good morning, Matt. Felt like Penn's interception was the only one this defense came away with all year. There were a few. Unfortunately, not many. Andre Sam, I think, was your leading interceptor this year. You think about significant interceptions. Let's see. Penn had the one. Major Burns had one. Andre Sam had three. Oh, Perkins. Perkins had his one. Zy Alexander had two. Deuce Chestnut had one. That was the one against Florida State. Oh, my God. So you only had 10 picks on the whole year. Not great, Bob. Not great. Oh, man. All right. I'll try to go a little quickly here to blow through some of these. I know I'm really far behind on comments, so my apologies. But y'all know the drill. Y'all hang out. I'll hang out for as long as y'all want. Keep asking questions. So, Brian Wynn, Matt, is the porous defense more the result of injuries, coaching, combination of both? You missed on players. Your scheme was bad. Your effort was bad. Your tackling was bad. All of it was bad. I mean, I can understand how, okay, you missed on some players, so you're not going to be elite. But things that you can control, like tackling and effort and stuff like that, when that goes by the wayside, that's when you really, really have an issue. And I think that was a problem this year. I mean, it's all of it. Like, that's how you end up the worst defense ever, is you're bad at all of those things. Cortland, I've seen too many people complaining about Kelly when he walked into a mess. Riley, Cristobal, Jimbo went 7-5 in better situations and more NIL. Napier's 5-7. Yeah, Cortland, look, man. Obviously, y'all know how I feel about Kelly. I think he's a great coach and he's doing a great job. But I also understand that I never want to lower expectations. So if you're an LSU fan and you're not happy about this season, I get it. You had an historic offense and your season didn't reach the potential it could have because your defense was historically bad. You got to find that balance. Let's see. Brambo, 10 wins get you in the 12-team playoff. 9-3 will require help. I think there's a lot of legitimacy to that. I don't think it's going to be literally every 10-team, a 10-win team, because you could have, remember, there's the whole G5 thing. I'm sure you're just talking about Power 5. But if you looked at it right now, so like, let's see. The Power 5. So Florida State, 12-0. Louisville, 10-2. Texas, 11-1. Oklahoma, 10-2. Not even playing the conference championship game. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State's 10-2. Iowa, it's 8. Washington, Oregon, that's 10. Georgia, Missouri, Alabama, Ole Miss. That's 14. So it's 14 teams. So 10-2 doesn't automatically get you a spot. And remember, one of those spots is going to go to a G5. So, y'all, I mean, I've just said it enough, man. Like, give me an expanded playoff. Give me 16. Like, I celebrated 12. I'm sorry, I celebrated 4 because it was a step toward an inevitable expansion. And now we're at 12. And I'm going to celebrate that as well because it's a step. And I'll keep taking these baby steps. But 12 is much better than 4. 4 is better than 2. 2 is better than, hey, let's let the president decide who wins the national champion. Jason Mobile, T-Bob went off the rails fast yesterday. I haven't laughed that hard with the stomach stuff in a long time. Oh my God, it's in my stomach. Taz, what's going on? Is Bo Nix that good, or is the fact he's not in the SEC anymore? I think Bo Nix has really gotten much better, and he runs that offense to perfection. If you watch Oregon play, a lot of it has been made of this, and it's true. Jaden Daniels has more touchdown passes beyond 20 yards than Bo Nix has completions. And it's air yards. Balls that travel more than 20 yards in the air. And it's because everything Oregon does is motion and quick passes and screens, and it's all fast and tempo and timing. It's all at the line of scrimmage. They just don't stretch the field very much. And he's just very good at what they do. So he's having a great year. I think, though, there are a lot of quarterbacks that could execute that. With respect to Jaden, you have to be a pretty special athlete to be able to do what he does, especially running the football. And that's the difference, right? I mean, he led the nation in yards per carry. He led the nation in yards, not among quarterbacks, among all players. He led the nation in yards per carry. That's insane. And that never happens for quarterbacks because of the negative yardage with sacks. You could have really good running quarterbacks, but every time a quarterback is sacked, that goes as a negative against his rushing total, which is stupid, but it's how they do it. So that's why it's so rare to see a quarterback lead the country in yards per carry. Jude Sand saying, good morning. After watching fans run off Stoops and Schiano, I believe we can get rid of Matt House if they initially plan to keep him. I don't think they plan to keep him, but Hunter Picard, Cortland Jacob, Tim Gotro, T-Pop was on a roll. The Thanos line was epic too. Lance Richard, sadly, I don't think Jaden did enough yesterday to win the Heisman. Bo Nix is really good. It has just been let's see, Cortland Taz. Let's see. Christian Herbstreit said J85 is the Heisman winner. You know, I think, I don't think that was a peek behind the curtain where his vote was going. He said he was voting for him. So that ain't a peek behind the curtain. That's him just pulling the curtain back, telling you who he's voting for. And I hope that people who do have influence like that continue to use it. They should. J-Dog, Bo Nix throws 10 yards passes. The receiver runs 50-yard touchdown. Happens. Let's see. Should the Saints bite the bullet and the Carr experiment and move on? They just can't, Taz. You know, they're financially linked with him for a minimum 3 seasons. So, should they? Yes. Will they? No. John Malone saw more Matt House. Drew. He's okay. Thanks, man. Both Eric and Drew are a little under the weather right now, so I think they're both still sleeping. So, I'm kind of listening to hear if I hear Drew wake up, I'll run go get him. But I hear Erica's alarm now. Yeah, Erica was down and out yesterday. Not feeling great. Let's see. Bo would be a perfect fit for the Saints. Hey, man, I would take any quarterback in round 1. Just show me a commitment to trying to find your franchise quarterback in the draft. Let's see. Cortland Jacob, Bo Nix throws pass behind the line. Wide receiver turns into a 40-yard touchdown. You can be complimentary of Bo Nix. Like, that's okay. He's had an incredible year, and his year warrants praise. Like, don't do the thing that John Canzano and Ryan Leaf are doing. Don't tear down the other guy who's having a really good season. Tell people why they should vote for your guy. Because I can tell you, that's annoying. Like, if I'm not a voter, but if I was a voter and someone kept telling me why the other guy stunk when clearly he's having an awesome season, that would annoy me. So stop telling me why Bo Nix stinks, because Bo Nix is a really good player. Tell me why Jaden is awesome and why he's the best player in college football. You can tell your guy's story without crapping on the other guy. Because if you're doing that right now, you're no better than John Canzano, who said Jaden's a clipboard holder, which is absurd. Like, all these guys are really good players. They're having great seasons. They're all worthy of consideration. Like, just praise your guy without crapping on the other guy. Carlton Cisco, what's going on? Good to meet you yesterday, man. Got to meet Carlton Cisco yesterday at Whiskey and Wine. I always love getting to meet folks that I told Carlton this yesterday. Man, when I get to meet so many of y'all, we sit here and we talk every day and have for years, man. It's really cool, and a lot of y'all have had the great fortune to be able to meet over the years, and a lot of you become really good friends, and I appreciate that sincerely. Away from Morning Scone. So great to meet you yesterday, Carlton. Carlton had his two boys were in the car. They weren't old enough to come into the bar, so they were hanging out in the car while he waited till we finished the show. And I'm glad you did, man. Safe travels, man. Let's see. Greg T. Good morning, Matt. Any GMEX news? Yeah, man. Plugging along, and I don't know if you're paying attention to crypto, but we are bubbling, and the Bitcoin halving is coming in the spring. It's, I think, targeted around April, but you're starting to see even a preliminary bull run right now. It's about to get really fun. Yeah. Trump's tweeter. I don't see us being better next year. Do you? Well, listen. Let me give you this context. Okay, so 2006, super talented team. You have 4 first-round picks. The number 1 overall pick in the draft, quarterback. LaRon Landry goes 6th overall, I think. You have 2 receivers going round 1. You have this dominant team that lost 2 heartbreaking games to Auburn and Florida on the road. And you come back in 2007 and you win the national championship. Matt Flynn was ready for his time, stepped up and led the team to a natty, and you had great veteran leadership on that team. I think LSU's schedule this year is next year will be decidedly more difficult. Having to play 2 Power 5 non-conference games with SC and UCLA. Oklahoma on the schedule, obviously. It's brutal. It's going to be a brutal schedule. But I'd rather that. Like, that home schedule might be the best home schedule ever. You're going to UCLA, Bama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Vandy. Man, that's going to be awesome. Anyway. Let's see. August, go Tigers. Morning, Matt. My take on the defense is absolutely not just players not making plays. It's also the DC not scheming well enough to help the players. Number 4 and 5 stars. 4 and 5 stars galore yet on D. Well, of course. I mean, I don't even think that that's necessarily a unique take. That's not a knock. It's just, of course, the coaching wasn't up to par. I mean, the 3rd and 3 or the 3rd and 7 when they got the 32-yard catch and run with the guy wide open on the right sideline, like, that's scheme. And if it's not scheme and there was a coverage bust, well, that's your job as a coach to make sure your guys know where to be. So, yeah, man, I think even goes without saying. Now, the part I'll disagree with is when you're talking about the 4 and 5 star galore, because this defense didn't have that. You had some really highly rated players that, at different levels of the defense. Obviously, Mason Smith was a 5-star. We know that. Perkins was a 5-star. But you leaned on a lot of transfers. And, like, a guy like Braden Swinson, I thought had a great year. Played much better than expectation. And You Got Mossed is so good. They're doing these, like, they're doing a You Got Mossed of home videos. Oh, mom with the one-handed interception. So good. Well, it might not have been mom. It might have been just one of the kids. But anyway, it's so good. Sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm watching Sunday NFL Countdown. And that was like You Got Mossed or whatever. They're doing, like, Thanksgiving Day home videos that they ask people to send in. They're really good. The guy running full speed that busted. Oh, man. Sorry. Y'all got to watch this. Y'all got to watch this if you get a shot. Into the fence. Oh! Sorry. I know this is terrible. None of y'all care. This guy's going deep and he crashed into the fence and broke it. Oh, here was number one we got. Oh! Oh my God. Oh. You better go low on that, big man. Oh God, that's really good. Anyway, all right. Let me go to the bottom and kind of work my way up so I get some of your recent comments. I'm sure there's a lot of people who commented half an hour ago that are gone. My apologies. Barry Johnson, we were scared Matt House was going to the NFL last season. Now we want him fired. Such is life. You can't be the worst ever. Austin Kidder, if you're an LSU fan and think Bo Nix should win the Heisman, please just put on a Bama hat and never come back. I'm not saying Bo Nix should win the Heisman, Austin. What I'm saying is you can acknowledge that Bo Nix had a good season, and while still thinking Jaden is the best player in college football. What you don't need to do is tell me that Bo Nix stinks, because he doesn't. He's dramatically improved from the guy he was. And I mean, some of these things that I hear too, it's like, oh, Bo Nix had to leave the SEC to be good. Well, don't you realize a lot of the people there are saying, well, Jaden had to leave the Pac-12 to be good? I mean, the shoe fits, you know, if the shoe fits, wear it. The shoe's on the other foot, one of those. Anyway, they can both be really good. They're both really good. They both had really good seasons. Kelly, around to the end of the 2028 season. John Malonzo, hard to believe football season is already over. Feels like the Florida State game was last week. I know, it goes so fast. George LeBron, did Brian Kelly indicate when he would perform the staff assessments? This week. But remember, I'll say it again, December 4th is when the portal window opens. If you're going to make a change, you better do it. Captain Eli, Matt, I'm an LSU fan living in Kansas. My first ever LSU game will be the one playing Oklahoma. Bringing an OU fan to the game as well. Okay. Steve Wynn, Matt, did you see the graphic about Pete Carmichael being the worst statistical OC in the NFL? Do you think the Saints will ever wake and realize we're moving backwards? Yeah. And typically a head coach will make that decision when he realizes, like, all of a sudden all the fingers are pointing at him. So when Dennis Allen feels threatened and has to make changes is when he will. And I think that's coming. Whether it's in season or after the season, it's got to be coming. Slim Jong-un, at what point do we end the Brian Kelly experiment? The Brian Kelly experiment? I mean, you won 10 games a year ago and won the SEC West. You went 9-3 this year with an historic offense and atrocious defense that they have to fix. Like, I could look at Florida and say, at what point do you end the Billy Napier experiment? Because you had back-to-back really bad seasons. But, I mean, back-to-back 9-3 regular seasons, I'm sure that's not, I get it. That's not what people hang banners around here for. I get it. But you also have got to understand what he inherited. This is the thing that most LSU fans, I think, lose sight of. When you, in your mind, think of how Brian Kelly's tenure started, you think, but you've just purged from your mind 2020 and 2021. You've purged from your mind the COVID year, losing at Missouri, you know, on the goal line stand. You've purged from your mind 2021 getting pounded by Kentucky and Ole Miss on the road. Like, you've just forgotten about that. You think we went straight from Joe Burrow to this, which ain't the fact. Like, your program eroded dramatically over 2 years after that championship. And your roster eroded. Brian Kelly, y'all know it. I mean, there were the old number of 38 scholarship players available in that bowl game against Kansas State. So the fact that you are where you are after 2 years, it's not where you want to be, but it's dramatically better than where you were. That's not even debatable. John Lewis, let's see, scheme over talent, the defense. No way Mississippi State and Tulane should be able to contain an offense like Ole Miss twice as effectively as House with similar talent. That's the point. Like, I'm not telling you that, like, LSU has talent issues on defense, and I'm not telling you that, you know, there aren't things that need to be addressed, because there are, talent-wise. But with the talent you have, you still shouldn't be the worst ever. Garrison Grant, Harrell was very impactful yesterday, seems to be back in 2022 form. See, here's the thing, Garrison. This is what I think a lot of LSU fans have lost sight of. A lot of people aren't college football. Harold Perkins had a great season this year. He was just he was on a bad defense, and he was in a very different role this year than he was a year ago. Last year, you had Ali Gay and B.J. Ojolari as your big end and your jack linebacker. So Harold was used a little bit more in a freelance role. This year, you had Braden Swinson emerge late, and that was really good to see. Ovie Gofu had a nice day yesterday as well. But Harold Perkins finished this season with 62 tackles. That's your fourth best. 11.5 tackles for loss. The next closest was 5.5. He finished with 5 sacks. The next closest was 2.5. He had an interception, 5 pass breakups, 5 quarterback hurries, 3 forced fumbles. The 3 forced fumbles led the team. The 5 quarterback hurries, second only to Savion Jones with 6. No, I'm sorry, Braden Swinson had 8. Like, he stuffed the stat sheet every game. It's just that we expected it to look more like it did a year ago, but they used him all over the field, and he was very effective this year. It's just you had a terrible defense, so the plays he did make often got lost. Mark Allen, the O-line next year is going to be great. I think that's one of the biggest things is who's going to be back. By the way, on Friday on AFR, I know it was a holiday, and so a lot of people weren't there. On Friday on AFR, I did a segment where I looked at the positions and what players are going to have a decision to make as to whether or not they come back. And that might be, I'm not sure if it's up on the AFR or LSU YouTube channel yet. Let me check real quick. My apologies, y'all, real quick. No, that'll probably go up today or tomorrow. But anyway, I basically look position by position at what guys have a decision to make that could come back. Offensive line is big because all 3 interior players could come back. Turner could come back for a 6th year. Frazier could come back for a 5th year, and Dellinger is a true junior, so he could come back for a senior year. So all three of your interior players, and of course, Emory Jones and Will Campbell are both sophomores. They'll be juniors. So point is, like, your entire offensive line could return next year. Logan Diggs could return. Josh Williams could return for a 6th season. He could use the COVID year. He redshirted in 2019, and he could use the COVID year and be a 6-year player. Defensively, Swinson could return. Parashan could return. And I would love to see both those guys back. And then obviously we know about the secondary. Isaiah Alexander could come back, and I think you would want him to come back. But we'll wait and see. Let's see. Edward Haskell, Matt, could Jaden Daniels improve his draft stock by playing in the bowl game? No. You know what? I mean, Edward, the point is he has the film, right? The body of work is set. Playing in a bowl game isn't going to change anything. You know what Jaden is. What would help him at this point now is the interviews, right? Going to the combine, the interviews, and having teams be impressed by the person that they'd be confident giving millions of dollars to. I mean, I always say, look, at the combine, the 2 most important parts of the combine are the medical and the interviews. The medical is where they check to see if you have physical issues that could limit your career. And then the interviews are when they determine what type of person you are. I think that's it for Jaden. I mean, he's going to run fast. He's going to test well. I mean, he's got enough of body work. The bowl game isn't going to change that. But, the week of practice at the Senior Bowl, going to the combine, doing the interviews, like, that's what's going to help potentially get Jaden from round 1 to, like, potential top 10, right? Brett commented this on X last night. Bo Nix is a great quarterback on a great team, but statistically, Jaden is the best player in college football. Both things are true. Yes, I agree with you. Robert Wall, morning, Matt. Maybe your best take was about how polarizing this team was. It was difficult to watch all year. The highs of the offense completely offset by the lows of the defense. Yeah, I think during the game, what I tweeted was I've never had a more polarizing experience watching LSU play football based on what unit was on the field. Um, what's a euphoric watching the offense, horrific watching the defense, which is so true. Mike Plata, did Dwayne ever pay you your $500? He did not. I think you're trying to trigger me this morning, Mike. Bill Gallion, Bo Nix was good at Auburn. Bo Nix had his moments at Auburn. He could just never get the big win. But he's a fifth-year college football player now, just like Jaden Daniels. And sometimes when you're 23 years old and you've played in 50 college football games and you have that experience, yeah, you're going to be better, and he should be. Merritt Mathern, are you doing whiskey and wine after the bowl game? It really depends on what bowl game it is, Merrick. When it is, what it is, all that sort of stuff. We did last year, and I would assume we'd like to this year, but it really just depends. Cortland, Jacob Bo Nix runs the offense very well, but you could put Jaden and Bo next to each other and say, yeah, Bo looks better. Jaden is much more must-see TV. Right. Make defense great again, Matt. Do you think Will Rogers' experience at Mississippi State in the air raid would translate well and possibly land him at Oregon next season? That's interesting. Sorry. I had to pop my neck. Two things. Number one, I really don't know about Oregon's depth at quarterback and who they have there and what they like, so I don't know. I also don't know if Will Rogers has any interest in transferring to Mississippi State. And actually, does Will Rogers have eligibility left? Oh, Rogers expected in the transfer portal. Okay. He'll be a highly sought after guy, you know. But one thing to keep in mind is Dan Lanning, obviously coming from Georgia, has a pretty keen eye on Will Rogers, having seen him in the SEC. So there's some truth there. Let's see. Robert Collins, last regular season of Morning Scone for the year. Thanks for always keeping us in the know. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching, Robert. I appreciate it, man. Clint, good morning. Why are people speculating Brian Kelly will leave LSU? I don't. Okay, so I actually do know the answer. Someone, and I know who it was, leaked to Billy Lucci that Brian Kelly didn't feel like a fit at LSU and might be interested in the Michigan job if it came open, and then that made it also seem like if Texas A&M were available, sort of thing. And so Billy Lucci went on the podcast with Hester and Doring, pregame in the SEC, last week and mentioned that. And I'm very confident that I know where Billy got that. And what I will say is, and Billy is very good at what he does, but what I will say about that is, there was not an ice cube's chance in HE double hockey sticks that I would have ever trusted that information. That's just me. If it is in fact from where I believe it came from. But I also think there's a big difference between having a casual conversation with friends on a podcast and putting out something as reporting news. And I think that's why it kind of caught on. Okay. Got caught up a little bit there. Okay. Here we go. I found my spot. As always, shout out to Brock, Yellow Banners Orthopedic Clinic, Hudco Roofing. Appreciate so much our friends at Brock. The after hours clinic is open nights and weekends. If you need an orthopedist, go see our friends at Brock. Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Love to give you a free, no obligation roofing inspection. Hudco is pinned in the chat, so just click that Hudco link and we'd love to help you out. Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Jackson Carter, do you think the UCLA DC would leave? I'm really not sure. I don't know the inner workings of UCLA. Nick Miller in Texas, but I'd rock TF out of a Hudco hat. I love it, dude. We can get you one. Brett, Scone, what's your prediction for the Saints? I did pick the Saints to win today. I think I picked a 23-20. Low scoring game. I do like the Saints to win it. I don't feel great if it comes down to a kick. I think Young Wei Koo is obviously a much better kicker than Blake Grupe. But divisional games, something Jimmy has pounded in my head this year, Jimmy Ott, is divisional unders. Teams know each other well. So I think low scoring game today. Obviously, both offenses have had their struggles. Desmond Ridder going back in at quarterback, but I like the Saints defense today, considering you're facing Desmond Ridder at quarterback, and hopefully the Saints offense can get going a little bit. There, the familiarity piece with Ryan Nielsen and Caden Ellis and David Onyemata, that's gonna be a little weird to see it for the first time. See all those guys in Falcons red and black, but I don't know necessarily who that benefits more, but the familiarity. So if you call that a push, it opened with Atlanta as a 1-point favorite. I think the line swung to the Saints too. So I do like the Saints today. Not with an extreme amount of confidence, but I do like the Saints to win a close, low-scoring game today. Let's see. Bo, it's like crapping on Red Lauer because Skeens was better. Both have been great. JD has been better. Good analogy. Red Lauer was the pitcher from Wake Forest, for those that missed the analogy, the long-haired kid from Wake Forest, where he and Skeens went head-to-head. Let's see. Fiat Fire. I like it. Bo Nix would have been 6-6 at LSU this season. He's a great player, though. Would 3? I don't know that I agree with that, man. Yeah, I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, you're 9-3, so you're saying you would have had to lose 3 more games. The first 2 most obvious ones, obviously, would be Arkansas and Missouri. No, I think you get Arkansas at home. The Missouri game was obviously challenging. Your defense was so bad in that game. But you got the back-to-back scores into the first half, start of the second that got you rolling. And what would be the other one? What would be another? I mean, are you just arbitrarily throwing out 6-6, or did you actually have 3 games in mind? I don't know. What other game? Let's see, John Blair, do you think Arkansas returns to irrelevance by keeping Sam Pittman? Yes. I think the challenge with Sam is the same challenge that Ed Ogeron had, which was when you are a head coach that doesn't specialize on one side of the ball, then your coordinator hires are essential and you can't miss. When Ed inherited Dave Aranda from Les Miles, and when he went and hired Matt Canada, he missed on Matt Canada, and it didn't go well. He promoted Steve Ensminger, who, by the way, had also been hired by Les Miles. And when he had Ensminger and Aranda, it worked really well. And then when Aranda left, he hired Bo Pelini, and that was a disaster. And then he hired Durante Jones, and that was a disaster. And he hired Jake Peets, and that was a disaster. And, you just got to nail the coordinator hires. When Sam Pittman had Barry Odom and Kendall Briles, it went really well. Both those guys left for other jobs, and he gets Dan Enos, and it was a disaster, and Travis Williams, and look at what happened. I mean, they had a tough schedule, but you're always going to play a tough schedule when you're in the SEC. Robert Potts said, Matt, we haven't heard realistic names for the DC job. Who do you actually expect to be the 3 names? So first of all, they got to fire Matt House first. Second, I do. I look at Brian Kelly, and there are times where he has stayed within his circle. If I were to just throw out a few names, you have two guys on staff that I'm not sure that fans would love the idea, but two guys on staff who have been defensive coordinators at a high level. John Jancic has been a high level DC, Tennessee, he's been in Georgia, Clemson, he's been all over the place. And I would be okay with that, by the way. And Bob Diaco. Bob Diaco was Brian Kelly's DC at Notre Dame, and they were awesome. That was the year that they went 12-0 and played Bama for the championship. And after that, Bob Diaco got the head coaching job at UConn. So you have two guys on staff that I think are certainly capable. A lot of people have brought up Dave Aranda. I would totally be fine with bringing Dave Aranda back to LSU. I don't know that Dave Aranda is going to be fired. And if he is, I don't know that he would come back this way, or if he'd want to be a head coach, or I've even heard UCLA or USC, where Alex Grinch was fired. I think if you want a wild card name, I think you could look at Lance Guidry. So Lance Guidry, who was the head coach at McNeese, he coached under Frank Wilson at McNeese, and then became the DC at Marshall, and then was hired by Tulane, and then before he coached at Tulane, went to Miami, spent this year at Miami. Lance Guidry is a guy that knows the state, knows how to recruit the state, knows how to coach defense, a really good defensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of qualified people. The thing I'll continue to say about DC is Brian Kelly, throughout his career, has a really good track record of hiring defensive coordinators. The Matt House thing this year went to hell in a handbag, but you look throughout his tenure as a head coach, and he has made good DC hires. Hang on one second, y'all. I just want to go check on Drew. Told you, bro. Got a sick household, man. Drew's still sleeping. He never sleeps till 10:30, 10:40. So, little bud. His little body's fighting off some virus, man. Erica, too. I'm lucky I ain't got her. If I got it, I'm handling it much better than they are. Anyway, all right, yeah. Hey, real quick, 441 watching. Thanks for hanging out, man. I appreciate it. To see that number is awesome. So thanks to everybody for being here. If you would, just take a quick second, smash the like button on YouTube, and subscribe up to the channel if you're new. Facebook, please like the page, share the post. And big shout out to Brock and HUDCO. Need North Beach, go to Brock. Need a roof, give us a shout at HUDCO. Love to help you out. Commercial or residential, roof repairs, roof replacements. Tell you about the silicone coating product as well. If you've got a commercial building, flat or metal roof, our silicone coating product at HUDCO is roughly, it's half the cost of a roof replacement. It comes with a 20-year warranty. So just think about not having to worry about your roof for 20 years. Or you're still going to own that building in 20 years. Anyway, HUDCO Roofing, HUDCOroofing.com. And Fiat Fire said Bo Nix losses would be at Missouri, Arkansas yesterday, possibly Florida too. I fundamentally disagree on Arkansas. I'm not sure that I agree about Missouri. It's certainly not the A&M game, the way that LSU turned that thing around. And I don't like getting into hypotheticals that can't in any way be proven. It's almost like a conspiracy theory. Like you can just definitively state something that you can't possibly prove. So I'm not interested in that conversation. Um, Bill Revere, we ended it when Kelly once, the Kelly, sorry. And they would do a wellness check on the Auburn cornerback this morning. H-Town Creole and the Brian Kelly experience. LOL. Go back to being under 500. STTDB. Let's see. Where is LSU with Nuss and Brennan the last 2 years? Now that's a good question. Not where they are now. But I'll tell you this: I don't know if Jaden's going to play in the bowl game. If he wants to, great. I mean, I will fully support any player making that decision that they want. If they want to play in the bowl game, awesome. If they don't, totally fine. I think y'all know where I stand on that. But I would be part of my excitement for bowl games now is obviously other than just getting to watch football is getting to see some guys play. Sort of as a precursor to next year. So, like, I would really be excited to see Nussmeier get a full game in a bowl game, just to go rip it and let's see how it looks. If Jaden wants to come back and play, I'd be thrilled to get to see him play in the purple and gold another game. But I would be interested. Bill Gallion, Troy Lawson. H-Town Creole asks, does Mason Smith come back? I think he should. I don't know what Mason's going to do. And I'll tell you, sometimes guys just have it made up in their mind that as soon as they are eligible to go to the league, they're gone. I don't know if that's the case with Mason. But if you got both Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo back next year, and Mason knew it was his money year, I would love to see how that would look. But I don't know. I don't know what decision he's going to make. I mean, one of the examples I give all the time is Malachi Dupre. Malachi Dupre was part of that class that had Leonard Fournette and Jamal Adams and all those guys, and it was just like when their 3 years were up, there's 3 into the league. That was it. And Malachi Dupre should have come back to school for another year, but he didn't. He left, and it was a 7th round pick, and hopped around a few practice squads and was out of the league. So I don't know if that's the same with Mason Smith. I would love to see him come back for another year. I think it would benefit him because he did not put out a lot of good tape this year. But it may be a situation where he's just willing to go get into the league and get on a roster. He's Al Woods. That's my best comp. Al Woods was a giant 5-star. It never really clicked for him at LSU. It was a 4th round pick of the Saints. The Saints cut him. He bounced around a while. By the time he finally caught on and that light switch came on, he's like in year 14 in the NFL now because he's so physically gifted. And once the physical ability matched the effort and all this stuff, look at what happened for Al Woods. I think the same could be true for Mason Smith, but I would love to see him come back for another year. Fiat Fire, not only is the halving in May, ETFs will be approved in January. Institutional money will fly into Bitcoin. I don't think this is priced in. I agree with you completely. But I also understand that most people that watch have no idea what we're talking about. Don't pay it. As much as crypto boomed during the last bull run, it's still such a microscopic percentage of the population of the planet that have bought crypto or understand what blockchain is. But yes, I'm very, very excited about it. Curry Schaub Hut. Your thoughts on Javian Toviano? Seems like you don't see his name called very often, which is usually a good thing for a defensive back. That's true. I think if there is a silver lining to as bad as this defense was, is over the final month of the season after the injury. Look, I mean, obviously the Denver Harris situation played out the way it did. Deuce Chestnut, the injury to Zy Alexander, it forced you to put a lot of young players on the field and see what you got with Toviano and Stamps. Um, some of the young safeties as well. Like we got to see Kylan Jackson and uh, 21. It's so weird. Like my brain goes to like how a chart in, hang on, why am I blanking? 21. Tag nabbit. Ryan Yates. A lot of those guys got a lot of playing time, you know. I think that's really beneficial. Now, I also think this year you're not going to go sign 4 cornerbacks in the portal, but Zy Alexander could return. We didn't get to see J.K. Johnson this year, the transfer from Ohio State who got injured in fall camp. He very well could end up becoming a really good player for you. Stamps, Toviano, Welch all got a lot of playing time this year. You have a glut of incoming talent in this coming recruiting class. And I think if there is a starting caliber player in the portal, you go get him. So I think they'll be in a much better spot next year than they were this year. You know, the thing we don't talk about enough is Greg Brooks. Greg Brooks was your best, most experienced defensive back. He made the calls. He was the chirper back there, line guys up, sure tackler. He could play nickel. He could play safety. Obviously, his life is vastly more important than football. But if you just look at it from a football perspective, losing Greg Brooks was a massive thing for that defense. My friend Aaron Brooks versus Derek Carr. Oh, God. Barry Johnson, do you think LSU is at a disadvantage in recruiting with NIL, how bad our economy is? Yeah, Barry, I mean, I don't think it's just like a Louisiana economy thing. I think it's just that LSU doesn't have, a lot of you've heard me say this before, so this isn't going to be anything new, but yes, LSU doesn't have the deep roster of boosters that some other places do. And it is a disadvantage. I mean, I've told you all point blank. There's no point in me mincing words. There were 3 players that LSU wanted last year out of the portal that all 3 picked Florida State. Florida State, I mean, they could have come to LSU. It was Keon Coleman, Braden Fisk, the defensive lineman, and Fentrell Cypress, the defensive back, the cornerback from Virginia. LSU, through their collective, had offered them each $100K. Florida State offered them each $300K. They went Florida State. That's not a sour grapes thing, by the way. God bless. Like, good for you. That's how it works now. They were more aggressive. But yeah, I mean, LSU's collective isn't funded well enough to be one of the top contenders. So you've got to be able to be choosy in who you're going to pay. And I think more than anything, you're not going to see high school NIL deals. You're going to see retention of your current roster, like last year with Harold Perkins, which they had to do because Perkins would have left because he had NIL offers last year. And portal. It's going to be retention and portal is where you're going to spend your money. George, JV has potential and attitude to be a leader. David Woodward, sure hope we get a truly competent DC. I don't want to see Perk go to the portal. Cortland, the O-line impressed me against the D-line. They got 2 sacks. LSU got 4. A big part of that too, Cortland, was the fact that Jaden Daniels is so good. There were a lot of times he was pressured and eluded that pressure because he's him. But yes, Jackson Carney, in my opinion, 12 is best because it keeps teams from resting starters late. The top 4 gets you a bye. Next 4 get you a home game. 12 is great. 16 will be better. And we'll get there eventually in my lifetime. Let's see, they need to use Perkins to gamble on third down disruptions and a defense that couldn't get off the field. Ransom Antoine, morning, Matt. Derek Carr can't move offense in the first quarter. Do you consider Jameis? Would I? Yes. Will they? No. Let's see, 16-team playoff is great, but when will we see trades in NCAA football? Running back room is too loaded. Yeah, as long as you're still talking about football programs associated with a university, you're not going to see trades. H-Town Creole, I think Denver Harris returns because transfer portal is not a good option for him. I disagree with you. Let's see, seems like, and by the way, he can't transfer and be eligible unless he goes to a lower subdivision, which he might. And I don't know that. I don't know the answer. But I could go back and point out what a lot of you crapped on me all throughout fall camp when I consistently was telling you Denver Harris is not good. He may be someday. Everyone can improve, but right now he's not one of their best options. And lo and behold, he wasn't on a bad defense. Seems like Carr has been in concussion protocol since he signed. No, he's good. Kobe, is A&M hiring a top-tier coach? I think what A&M does is going to be fascinating because you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You just paid Jimbo $76 million to go away, right? And rich people didn't become wealthy by hating money. So you set a match to $76 million. There's two things here. Number one, like you've got to nail this hire. You don't pay a coach $76 million to go away, make that kind of mistake to turn around and miss on your hire. The flip side of it is, how do you go to your boosters and say, okay, now I need $100 million to hire that, right? So I don't think they do the $100 million contract. But if you go lesser, you're taking more of a gamble on a coach. It's a tough call for A&M. It's really tough. They have to play Womack more next season. I don't know why he has not played more. He's terrible against the run. He's too light. H-Town Creole. Go back and watch the Alabama game and watch Jalen Milroe's 21-yard touchdown run. He completely gets sucked up on the edge. He had contain, and that's why Jalen Milroe scored. He's an athletic guy coming off the edge, but he is not big enough to handle offensive linemen in the SEC as a run blocker. And I remember the very first day of practice in fall camp when they were doing D-line, O-line drills, and he was getting like tossed around like a rag doll. He's not big enough. So the way they started using him late was in pass rush situations, but anyway. King Tut J85 is the highest QB rating ever, along with total yards, running stats, strength of schedule is all you need to see. Yeah, but it's not just, the thing is, it's not just about stats. If it was just about stats, and we could have looked at a lot of those Hawaii quarterbacks, right, that threw for 5,000 yards. But I'm not disagreeing with you, but you can't just look at stats. You have to look at context as well. Jimmy James, Matt, you need to check out Pardon My Take NFL Team Rankings, has an LSU tier. That's pretty cool. Let's see. If I were BK, I'd pump $2 million of salary into NIL. He could buy 3 national championships and seal legacies of generational head coach GOAT. Will Anderson start next year, wide receiver? So Kyron Lacy is one I think that has an interesting decision to make, right? He can come back, and Kyron Lacy could come back and be your number one. Kyron Lacy, Aaron Anderson, and then you've got the great young group that you signed this year with Sheldon Sampson and 14 and 12. Jaylen Brown. Why can't I remember this kid's name? I can never remember that kid's name. Hang on. I have it. Wait. Kyle Parker. Why? It's the most generic Kyle Parker. Why can I never remember that kid's name? God bless him, man. He's a good player. Where's number 12? But just to my point earlier about Yates, when I go to fall camp and I'm doing my notes and it's all just happening very fast, you just write jersey numbers, right? So 12 versus 6, 12 win, circled up. So you remember jersey numbers before you learn the roster. And so a lot of times when these guys go play during the year, then you start to learn their names. But when they don't play, I just remember the jersey number. Anyway. Gulf South, good morning. Mike Hardy, when will you be at Legends in New York? So I think all those final decisions, plans, etc., all should be made tomorrow. And the plan would be for Friday's AFR to be in New York. Talking about for the Heisman, by the way. Plan would be for Friday's AFR to be in New York, and then we would do a Saturday pre-Heisman show as well. Lacey can come back if he gets LASIK. May help him. A lot of athletes do. H-Town Tyga, Aggies can afford to light a match to $76 million. Many in Baton Rouge don't understand how much money the Aggies have. Living in Houston, working in oil and gas, say their ATM machine in West Texas. That's true. It's why they're able to do it, and that's not a surprise. But as I said, as I prefaced it, wealthy people don't become wealthy by hating money. So if you set a match to $76 million, that doesn't mean you're going to be happy to set a match to $76 million. And do you trust the person who gave the contract that necessitated setting a match to $76 million? That's the point. A lot of people may point back to Scott Woodward, but the point I made, and I may have been the only person 6 years ago in college football who didn't bat an eye when they gave Jimbo the 10-year, $75 million contract. And my point at the time was, oh, sure, that seems like a lot now. But by the time you get to that end of 10 years, $7.5 million for a coach, he's going to be the 30th highest paid coach in football. The initial deal wasn't the problem. The problem was, after the COVID year, when they went 9-1, Ross Bjork extended him at $90 to $96 million. And I understand why you had to do it. You got to pay coach, but the terms at which they extended him were ridiculous. And that's what bit him in the behind. It wasn't the initial contract. It was the extension that Ross Bjork gave him. So that's why they're in a really tough spot. Because if you're Ross Bjork and you gave him that extension and then 3 years later had to come back and buy him out, hoo boy. You just can't get it wrong, is my point. And you have to go back to the people who you just set fire to a big pile of their money and say, all right, now I need money for this. And they're going to look at him like, okay, we're going to need a little more due diligence from you, sir. Let's see, you guys should try to take Whiskey and Wine to ESPN and bleep out a lot of T-Bob stuff. He could go on to become SNL's guest host. Let's see. Bill Gallion, what's the deal with high school NIL? Let me rephrase. I don't want you to think that like high schools are paying players. What I mean is when you're what A&M did a couple of years ago when they signed that great high school class where it was all NIL, right? They basically bought the best high school class ever. I think that was a great lesson learned for many college football programs to say, don't invest your money in high schoolers because even if you get them on campus, they could leave the next year. You know what I mean? So invest in retaining your current roster and portal. Gulf South, 4 straight days of all football. That's more than we had to open the season. Get it in while you can because it'll be the off season before we know it. So true. It happens every year. You know, the kickoff happens and then you blink and the season's over. And, you know, December's fun because you got a lot of bowl games, you got meaningful NFL games, you get to the playoffs through January. You know, but yeah, it goes fast. Seriously think T-Bob is super smart? T-Bob is very well-rounded. Well, he's a very well-rounded individual. He knows a lot. Let's say it this way. He knows a little about a lot, if that makes sense. On 4th and 31, I was bragging about you saying Auburn was going to beat somebody they shouldn't. Oops. I did say all year, I said, Hugh Freeze is going to slip up and beat someone he has no business beating. And boy, if they weren't closed yesterday, but weren't they, Mike? Good, yeah. Ernest Gray, do you think we need a new defensive coordinator? Yes. Bryce Boudreaux, MMA announcer. Went to my first whiskey and wine yesterday with my dad after the game. A dream come true. T-Bob was fantastic to talk to. Wanted to meet you, Matt, but some guy had you hemmed up. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Like normally I'm around, man. Sorry I missed you. Very, very sorry I missed you, man. We always appreciate everybody who comes out. We always try to stay and talk to just talk to everybody and thank everybody who comes out, man. So thank you for coming out, and I'm sorry we missed you, man. LSU was crazy to pay Saban $1 million per year. It wasn't $1 million. It was 1.2. I remember that very, very well. Joe Dean wanted to pay the $1 million and didn't want to go to $1.2 million, and Emmert said pay him. They were can you imagine that? They were haggling over the difference between $200,000 for Nick Saban. That was in December of '99 after DiNardo got fired and they hired Nick. Crazy. Heath Lanier, good morning. T-Bob can be the next Farley. Well, that had a tragic end, so let's hope it's not that. Justin Franks, Holgerson out at Houston. So you want to be a Power 5 coach, huh? Chris Hilton will be able to... Oh, thank you, Josh. Yes, my mistake. I should have mentioned Chris Hilton as well. Yes. So you would have, if Kyron Lacey comes back next year, you'd have Kyron, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, and then all the young guys. So yes. Let's see, Gulf South. What makes Woodward's Brian Kelly hire now better than his Jimbo hire at the time? Both are giant contracts. Jimbo had a title versus Brian Kelly all-time win, so Brian Kelly has better luck. So it was a very fair question. To get that type of coach away from their situation, you had to offer them that type of deal. If you wanted to get Jimbo away from Florida State where he won a championship, et cetera, you had to give him the big contract. And like similarly, Gulf South, like I don't think A&M is going that route this time. From everything I understand, they're not going to do the thing where they give all the autonomy and all the resources and all the everything to the coach. To get Brian Kelly out of South Bend, you had to do the same thing. And there is a risk, but the point that I've consistently made is if you're to play, and this was my problem with the Ogeron hire back in the day. When you're LSU and you've achieved a certain level of success and you have a standard and you have resources and everything, you have a massively desirable job. Every coaching hire comes with risk. Look at what happened with Jimbo. The guy won a national title and just never achieved those levels at A&M. So every hire has risk. But depending on who you hire, you minimize risk. When Ohio State hired Urban Meyer, there was virtually no risk. When Alabama hired Nick Saban, there was no risk. When Michigan hired Harbaugh, it took a long time to get there, but Jim Harbaugh had won everywhere he had been. You'd minimize risk with that hire. When you're LSU, there's no reason to take a giant risk. There's no reason. You have a giant pool of successful coaches that it doesn't justify taking the risk. Ogeron was a massive risk. Now, they caught lightning in a bottle in 2019, but the rest of his time here was basically a disaster. I would still take the disaster for 2019 because it was awesome. 10 times out of 10. So, to the question about Jimbo and Brian Kelly, yes, absolutely. There's a risk with every hire. But if you hire a guy like Brian Kelly, who's built programs at every level over 3 decades and won everywhere he's been, and has proven he's got a system, his ability to coach, you're going to win. The question is, are you going to win at the highest level, win a national championship? Don't know. But your program is going to be stable enough to where you're not going to bottom out. That's just the reality of that kind of hire. It's just when you take this guy that has always been right there, 10-win seasons, got into the playoff, played for a BCS championship, but when he got to that stage, didn't have the Jimmies and the Joes to beat Alabama. Can he get you there with the players you have at LSU, get him over the hump? I get it. That makes sense. So it's a fair question, but I also understand why if you're LSU and you're making a hire, you want Jay Johnson, Kim Mulkey. Kim Mulkey won 3 national titles. They could have gone and found someone who was less expensive to give him the output. What was going to be less of a risk, bringing in Kim Mulkey or a coach on the come up? Kim Mulkey, and look how it's paid out. Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson got Arizona to the College World Series twice. He was in the championship series at the University of Arizona. How'd you think it was going to go here? So you also look at the track record of the guy doing the hire. I mean, even look at what Woodward did bringing Buzz to A&M. That seems to be working out really well. So anyway, I get it. I mean, it's a fair question to ask. Let's see. Joe Dean was about to hire Pat Sullivan at some point. Did he ever receive treatment for drinking problem? Pat Sullivan, I don't know. The thing about Joe Dean is, and full disclosure, my family has known the Dean family for a long time. And I think the world of Joe Dean. The thing that most people lose sight of when they have those conversations is the realization that when Joe Dean came in as the athletic director, LSU's athletic department was operating in the red. And as a businessman, Joe Dean's first responsibility was to get LSU to profitability, which is so weird to say now, but it's true. And so he did that. He did deals and found ways and operated LSU like a business to get LSU into the black. And some of that was bargain shopping for coaches. That's why you end up with Jared DiNardo from Vanderbilt. So Joe Dean was just the athletic director at a different point in time in LSU history. When Skip took over, Skip will tell you this point blank. He said this publicly. He was such a popular figure, and LSU and TAF were trying to push through the seat licenses, the tradition fund, and they needed someone massively popular that could push it through. Who better than Skip? So that was Skip's great contribution there. Skip hired Les Miles. He obviously hired Smoke after he retired. That didn't go great. But then he brought in Maneri, who had 15 great years and won a national title, and it was a great hire. They went through some basketball hires that didn't go so great. But anyway. Actually, no, Oliva hired Trent Johnson. Yeah, Skip didn't hire Trent. Oliva had just been hired at LSU to replace Skip. And before he took over, he was so involved in the search process to hire Trent Johnson. That's what it was. So Skip actually didn't. Anyway. Charles Bolds, what's going on? Trivia Carter. Can we talk about baseball team now? Y'all talk about Bama. Get going here in a few minutes, y'all. Saints starting less than an hour, and we got Jimmy Out's Football Sunday with picks from Andy Isco and Paul Nolan coming in 10 minutes. You better believe I'll be locked in on those. Larry Connor Jr., Matt, do you think LSU offense will take a step back next year? Larry, it's hard to imagine maintaining this pace when you literally were the best offense in college football. You know what I mean? So a step back could mean you're not going to average. Look, I want to see what their averages are right now. Hang on. You are averaging 547 yards a game. And which leads the country. And 46.4 points per game, which leads the country. You are leading the country in total offense and scoring offense. Are you going to take a step back? Probably. You're probably not going to lead the country in offense again. But could you still be good enough to win every game you play? Sure. Blink twice if you've been told Corey Raymond coming back to LSU is realistic. Here's what I will tell you. I will tell you what I know and then what I don't know. what I am very comfortable in saying is that if LSU fires Robert Steeples, which I think is a possibility. Let me rephrase. Okay. I do believe there will be multiple defensive staff changes. Okay. This is where I'll go on the record and tell you what. Okay. I do believe there will be multiple defensive staff changes. If LSU is looking for a cornerbacks coach, Corey Raymond would be interested in returning to LSU. I am confident saying there are people at LSU within the football program and within the athletic department that would like Corey Raymond to return. What I am not sure of is if Brian Kelly is one of those people that wants him back, that wants him to return. I will tell you point blank that Corey Raymond did not have an opportunity to even interview on Brian Kelly's staff when Brian Kelly was hired. There was not even a courtesy interview. He was let go with the rest of the staff that was let go. So I don't know. I don't know if Brian Kelly wants Corey Raymond. What I will absolutely say is there has been over the last year, maybe even less than a year, there has been a fundamental shift in the way that LSU is approaching recruiting, with Frank Wilson as a recruiting coordinator as opposed to Brian Polian. I was very candid about this when LSU lost 2 cornerback commits here recently, one from Nashville, one from Orlando, and in that time took commitments from 2 players. Oh, there's my cousin going to drop off firewood. I got to wrap up. Hang on. Hang on 1 second, y'all. I might have to wrap up. Up real quick, and then I'll come home. All right, we're gonna wrap. I know it was right in the middle of all that. But to be continued. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. As always, shout out to Brock and Hudco. You need orthopedics, go to Brock. You need a roof, give a shout out to Hudco, HudcoRoofing.com. All right, y'all have an awesome Sunday. Who dat, and thank you for watching. Peace.